Today we're going to be looking at radical expressions and functions. First, we're going to find the square roots of each number. The square root of 100 is 10 because 10 times 10 equals 100. The square root of 64 is 8 because 8 times 8 equals 64. The square root of -9, well, we can't do that because there's no real number whose square root is a -9. Negative numbers are very special. We have to use imaginary numbers to do square roots of negative numbers. Finding the square roots of a fraction, we can rewrite that as the square root of 4 over the square root of 81. Well, we know the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of 81 is 9. So since 2 ninths times 2 ninths equals 4 81ths, we know our answer is 2 ninths. The square root of x to the 8th, you simply divide that power by 2 and we find that it is x to the 4th. We can check it by doing x to the 4th squared, and yes, we do get x to the 8th. A negative times the square root of 49. Since the negative in front of the radical indicates the negative square root of 49, we just take the square root of 49, which we know is 7, and that negative out front makes it a -7. Finding the cube root, well, 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1, so the cube root of 1 is 1. Now we have the cube root of a -125, and we know -5 cubed is our -125, so our answer is -5. Now we're looking at the cube root of 1 over 216. Again, we can write that as the cube root of 1 over the cube root of 216. We know the cube root of 1 is 1, and the cube root of 216 is 6, so the answer is 1/6. Over here, we're just checking it. 1 cubed over 6 cubed is our 1 over 216. Again, cube root of x to the 15th, we take that 15th power and divide it by 3, and we find the answer to be x to the 5th. We check our answer, we can do x to the 5th cubed, and we get back to our x to the 15th. One more for us is the cube root of a -8, x to the 9th. Again, dividing that power by the 3, we get x cubed, and the cube root of a -8 is -2. Checking our work, we can do a -2x cubed, and we do get back to our original question of the cube root of a -8 x to the 9th. When we're asked to simplify, we simply have the quantity -2 squared, the square root of that. Well, we have to start inside most, and the -2 squared is simply 4. The square root of 4 is 2. Now we have the cube root. Well, again, we have parentheses around this -3 to the 3rd. And if we do that work, we get -27. The cube root of -27 is our -3. The next one is the 5th root of the quantity x minus 8 to the 5th. Well, the 5th powers kind of cancel each other out, so we're left with just the stuff on the inside, which is x minus 8. Continuing on, if f at x is the square root of x plus 2 and g at x is the cube root of x minus 1, we're supposed to find each function value. The first one says look at the f function and put 14 in for x. This is exactly what we did. And we did that so that we had 14 plus 2, which is square root of 16, is simply 4. Again, we're using the f function and we're plugging in 7 this time. And 7 plus 2 is 9, and the square root of 9, of course, is 3. Now we're looking at the g function and putting 9 in. We have the cubic root of 9 minus 8, and we know the cube root of 8 is 2. Going again to the g function, we're putting in 2. 2 minus 1 is 1, and the cube root of 1 is 1.